Hello, kiddies. Welcome to Katz from the Crypt.
Hello, boils and ghouls. Welcome to a EC Comics review episode of Dads from the Crypt. Joining me today, we have Alan Katz. Welcome.
A pleasure to be here as always, Jason. Thanks for inviting me to sit in and see what the folks at EC are coming up with.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying having an excuse for us to collaborate on a semi-regular basis. It's always a good time. We've had some wonderful guests, but everyone's always busy, whatnot. So glad to have you back. But speaking of EC, before we dive into this week's issue, you have a new, somewhat new episode on your podcast about Mr. William Gaines. So why don't you tell our audience about that?
Indeed, earlier in this our third season, we did a very special episode. We talked to a lot of people who were influenced by Bill Gaines, as Gil and I were. We talked to John Kassir. Did we talk to you for that episode? I don't remember.
I don't remember if I'm on that one or not.
You might be. In fact, well, it's an encore of that. Well, it wasn't an interview. It was a series of interviews. It was a special episode where we paid tribute to Bill Gaines, and of course, Bill Gaines, his dad started EC, and then Bill Gaines reimagined EC, and instead of educational comics, it was entertaining comics. Bill Gaines was remarkably influential for a man who I don't think he wrote a word. He was more like a guy who ran a salon for crazy people. And he just had a knack for, he had an idea and he found the people to execute this incredible idea.
Kind of like a conductor, the conductor who plays the symphony.
Really and truly, like like a Saul Hurok. What were they called? It's going up on the word. Not an entrepreneur. Just going up on the word. It'll come to me in the middle of a comic, but it'll suddenly pop into my head.
These aren't people that were influenced. These are people that actually at least met him, and I know you and Gil, met him, and had a working relationship while you were working on Tales from the Crypt.
Well, having grown up, I was one of the kids who read Tales from the Crypt under the covers at night. I loved it, and so to have gotten to a point in my life and career where I had the opportunity to bring to life one of Bill Gaines's creations, and this was a man who really between Tales from the Crypt and Mad Magazine, my idea of comedy really flowed from, in a lot of ways, from Bill Gaines and Groucho Marx, but to a large extent, Bill Gaines and Mad Magazine. And so to get to work with him, to take something of his and put it in a different medium, and then to get his blessing. Gil and I met, at least I met Bill Gaines for the first time on the set of Lethal Weapon 2 in Joel Silver's trailer. And we had lunch, and Joel, being Joel, he said, "Okay, Bill, here's your chance. You want to tell these guys to fuck off? You can tell them to fuck off, and I'll fire them right now. And I'll get someone who can do this job." And Bill Gaines said, "No, I think what these guys are doing is exactly right." And he gave us his blessing. And
the highest praise you can get on that show.
Holy cow! Of all the things that ever happened on Tales from the Crypt, doing that show, getting Bill Gaines's blessing in person
Very cool. All right, and that's out now on the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. What's the name of
Correct.
the episode so people can find it?
Ask that again.
What's the name of the episode it's under, or the
It's
number?
oh my god, oh my god. I'm working on so many different podcasts.
I'm asking the hard hitting questions.
The title of that one went right out of my head. What are we calling that one? Oh my god, give me a second. I'll find that. Holy shit, there must be an answer to that question.
I should have it in just a second.
You'll probably have it faster than I will.
Oh, was Bill Gaines actually God?
Oh gosh, yes, that's right. See, I just finished producing this week's, so I've completely forgotten about last week's.
There we go.
That was so long ago.
Season 3, episode 50 for those looking for it. But it just came
There
out.
you go.
The most recent one that came out on last Tuesday. So, but I don't know exactly when this one's going to come out either. So, might have to go back an episode or two. Or if you're listening to this far into the future, you can find it. But let's dive in. So today we're talking Cruel Universe number 5, which is the last, at least of this run, of the Cruel Universe line. They're going to be switching to, I think it's Cruel Kingdom it's called. Let me forward a little bit. Which is going to be a little bit more fantasy. Cruel Kingdom. So that'll be coming in January. And I'm very excited for that because it's something we haven't really seen before in any of the EC lines. So should be very cool. But still the same DNA. All right. For our first segment, we have a story called Paring Knife. And this takes place on some sort of mining colony. I don't know if it's on the moon or our moon or a moon.
It seems like some planetoid. It looks like the one image of it is some kind of planetoid somewhere out in the solar system.
I think actually it looks more like an asteroid now I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
Okay. And basically we get some quick story that basically they're very low on food. Or at least they don't get much food. They have to recycle everything. Looks like hair, maybe nail clippings. They even try to think about recycling a sock that can be redone by something called the paring knife, I guess is the name of the machine, that can take things and reconstitute it into some sort of food sustenance. But we learned that they're not getting enough calories. They're getting, quote, baseline, which the company that they're working for decides based on their DNA, how much nutrition they actually need to survive based on, some sort of algorithm. And, we can tell where this is going pretty quick when they start talking about the company making these kind of health care related decisions, and which is a very prominent thing in the news right now. Again, we'll get more into that. And then they have a supervisor coming for some sort of regular inspection. He's literally the suits because everyone else is just wearing overalls or whatchamacallums, just like jumpsuits, and he's the guy with the tie and everything. And he comes in, and he gives them special instructions on how to change the food machine to his liking, which of course they don't have access to those instructions. And he asked for a tour so he can finish his inspection and get out there as quickly as possible. And they're asking, the woman that he's with is asking for, we need parts to get the place up to safety code, et cetera, et cetera. I guess some turbines aren't spinning because they're not, they don't have the right safety equipment. And he basically says, no, we need them running. The safety stuff is redundant, yada, yada, yada. And again, you all know where this is going. He turns on the machine and quickly gets sucked in and chopped to little pieces. So what they do, the crew, they pick up what the remains of his body. And I guess the paring knife replicator machine can take organic pieces and put them back together to any configuration. So they're able to actually put the supervisor, the inspector, back together. And he doesn't remember exactly what happened, but he's more or less himself. And, they try to, he kind of resumes after a little bit of confusion, his inspection, but of course, keeps telling them that they can't get any extra calories or any extra parts, yada, yada, yada. And the woman triggers him by saying that was with him when he fell into the turbine, saying, "I wish you were dead." that drives him to get upset and attacks her, and the rest of the crew tries to stop him and killing him again. I mean, the first one was an accident. This one was more self-defense. And then they said, well, now that they have the instructions to the food replication device, they can use his remains for something a little bit more useful and have themselves a nice meal. So, Alan, you get your cannibalism, which I know you love so much.
There's nothing funnier than cannibalism for 1,000 different reasons, because just the thought of turning out, ultimately, if someone eats you, you're going to ultimately turn out as their shit. There's nothing lower and nothing funnier that can ever happen to one human being is to get eaten by another. This is a long way to go for a cannibalism joke.
Yeah, I thought it was actually going to get there a lot quicker. The fact that they actually they brought him back, I was like, oh, okay. Because I figured they were going to eat him at some point.
I'm not sure what that additional round of what that additional go around provided the story, because all right, so he's nice for 2 seconds, then he remembers. But let's go back. There are a couple of things here that are like, wait, what? All right, first of all, this is a space colony, right? It's a space colony, and the boss comes in wearing a business suit. A business suit. Wait. Come on, man. It's space travel. Surely they would have adapted. Did he travel all this way in wearing a shirt, a suit, and a tie? It must took him weeks, if he's lucky, to get here. Surely, in space travel, people dress a little differently.
You know what it is? There's those shirts where it's like a tuxedo but a t-shirt. I bet you it's a spacesuit that looks like a business suit.
Then make reference that.
It's absurd. Fine.
It's kind of wacky. All right, then you get down. They've got all the technology to get up into space, to travel to distant planetoids or an asteroid, land there, build a colony. When you get down to the main piece of the mechanism, the paring knife thing, the switch is a giant, like an old railroad switch, which, it's a bit slick. Like, wait, is this science fiction or, it's, if they're trying to be ironic, that's hilarious. I don't know that they're trying to be ironic. It feels like a little failure of imagination here. Cannibalism stories, I'm always going to love because they're cannibalism stories, but this is a challenging one to love because it goes so far afield just to make its simple point.
Yeah, I think I'm wondering whether they were trying to make them a little bit more sympathetic. Like if they ate him right off the bat, it would have made them seem a bit crude. But the fact that they tried to put him back together and it just wasn't successful.
But the moment he walks in the door and he's a total asshole, come on, the attitude is screw the guy. Really, and he's such an asshole. Really, it's and what they're complaining about is food. We're starving. Can we get more portions? Well, obviously this is Sweeney. We're going to Sweeney Todd this guy. So it's. I think they could have approached the story differently, and rather than avoid the cannibalism till the last second, even though that's really where everyone knows that's where it's going, you could tell the story very differently by going at the cannibalism itself.
Yeah.
And if you can't hide it, you got to find another way to exploit it. In Tales from the Crypt, we didn't hide the cannibalism. It was about cannibalism. In fact, to me, the best scene in the whole piece is when Judd Nelson goes in and chops a butt steak off of Meatloaf's carcass, a piece of meatloaf from Meatloaf.
Yeah.
It's because we went right, you go right at it, man. That's the way to attack cannibalism. You take it in two hands and gobble it all up.
Yeah, I found this entertaining. I really like that last panel where it shows them all sitting around. Suddenly they have glasses of wine. There's these hot plates of food
Oh
coming out,
yes,
and I like
that's where the
and I
story
really
should begin.
yeah, true. That makes makes a lot of sense. And what I really like about that panel is it's a POV shot because you see a hand coming from your perspective holding a glass of wine like to cheer. So it's putting us, the viewer, in there, like we're complicit with them.
You know,
very like Hitchcock type of shot.
but that's exactly right. And a better way to have done this, really a fun way, would have been to do it from this perspective. And we are going to eat this guy. And let's all know that. And let's make the audience part of the cannibalistic process.
Yeah. It's just, we kind of have to talk about it that like again, these are stories. This story came out over a week ago before everything went down with the healthcare CEO. It's a weird parallel. I mean, the story would work, would be relevant anytime really, but even right now, that kind of zeitgeist, it's very on the nose.
Yeah, indeed it is. It's I hadn't thought about that particular piece of the news. I've stopped watching news for the most part.
Yeah, but that's one of those stories that it's just like
that was pretty spectacular though.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many little wrinkles that keep coming up. You can't like not.
It is. They went and they started making this story.
I'm sure months
ago. Yeah, easily. But it's regardless of how any one of these stories is, I still feel like keep doing what you're doing, EC. They keep demonstrating a remarkable timeliness.
Yeah.
With their stories. And that's the nature of great storytelling. It really it's timely yet timeless.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one is called the ink spot test. And we have a woman who is a psychologist, I don't know the exact designation, but she's doing these experiments using ink blots on her patients. But at the same time, she's also giving them some experimental drugs without their approval that make them hallucinate when they see these ink blots to try to get bigger responses out of them, to try to, I think, create a bigger emotional reaction. So like when she gives tea to one of her patients and has her look at the blots, and then she like instantly goes into these like crazy ass hallucinations of like lots of eyeballs and creatures and stuff coming out of her. Really cool art. And she's kind of recording her reactions for research purposes. And then we see later on when the doctor's at home, she's having some tea for herself, and she looks down at the ink blots on her desk, and suddenly she starts having a hallucination, but this one is much longer and more extreme, where she's being chased around the house by the monsters, and they're like shooting lasers at her with their mouths. And she falls into one of the ink blots eventually and is like sucked in and drowned. Very cool artwork, really cool stuff. And then we find out that one of her patients figured out what she was doing and dosed her, the psychiatrist, with the same medicine, except she didn't know the dosage, so just put it all in. So she intentionally made her, maybe not intentionally, but she definitely
a lethal dose.
Yeah. I don't know if she knew it was lethal or not, but she, one of the things the doctors said to her patients was you have to trust the process. And, that's the final thing the patient told her. So yeah, that's that story. Again, really cool artwork. I really like how on the edges of the pages there's little ink blots happening, just dots of ink throughout it. Really cool from a art design standpoint. Just want to call that out. What do you think, Al?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, it was from a design standpoint really terrific, fun, and it was kind of reminiscent of Hitchcock, one of his movies, when he first experimented with getting inside a character's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so you begin to color outside the lines, and it's really, that part of it is fascinating to me. The only drawback to the story is that the psychiatrist character is just it's just too heavy-handed
Yeah.
in her lack of professionalism, her lack of ethics, her lack of anything human. I think there is a more subtle way to have created her character, so it wasn't quite such a
mustache twirling evil.
like a sledgehammer. It was sledgehammer, way of making the point, because the idea is quite interesting. That if she really thinks she's doing it for the best of her patients, and even if she's coloring outside the lines, well, that's okay. That's interesting. If her patients seem to feel like they're doing okay, again, it's perspective. Then we get that patient who comes in. There's a lot of play in this story, and yeah, I think if they'd been a little more trusting of their audience to accept a more nuanced character, I think this could have been. I think it's good. It could have been exceptional.
Yeah, my big criticism also is that it's a little too short. It could use like one more page to color in a little bit more. They could have used that to kind of flesh out the character and kind of give her like a little bit more depth. I do like that to make her seem very quote normal. I think that's at least somewhat telling, but there needs to be a lot more showing than telling.
I think we absolutely agree because she's so one-dimensional. It's that other page. They didn't leave themselves anywhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
And with 5 panels, really, you could have gotten a sense of her history, and there could have been some irony to the twist at the end. Here, she's just getting what she deserves. There could have been something,
or something showing the how it's affecting the patients outside of the therapy.
Cool, great.
I think it's actually a really interesting concept overall that they could go in many places with.
Oh yeah, it's a very provocative story, and that's why the art really, the design suggests how expansive the idea is.
Right.
And the only thing limiting the full payoff is a more fully developed, rounded, reality-based character.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, for what's there, I actually really like this story.
Yeah. And looking at the artwork again, there's the one of the Kraken, black Kraken monster pulling her into a flat surface. It's what fun.
Yeah. All right. And then for our last segment is called the Billionaire Trust. And here we have a character, I don't think they say his name or not, who he's a bit of a trust fund baby. He's got his Yale sweatshirt. And he's getting some money from his father to become a startup. And of course he's upset because he says it's not enough money, yada yada yada. There's one really funny line where he says, like, how am I supposed to be like a self-made startup with these funds? Like, he's missing the point of a startup, of a self-made startup. He says, other people are self-made, why not me? I'm just as smart. Where he's neither smart or trying to be self-made. He's just trying to piggyback on what's already been given to him. Anyways, we see that he's using his influence to make some underhanded deals to ruin some environmental land for some, it looks like some resort. And he talks about building like some parking lots to make money, yada yada yada. And he is just he keeps saying he's doing this for the betterment of society by making himself wealthier and then redistributing or reinvesting his wealth until he becomes one of the richest men in the world, yada, yada, yada. But the one thing, of course, he cannot get rid of or escape is time. And, you kind of see him progress to be an older man. And he's about to sign off on his, what happened to his holdings when he passes away. But then someone comes in and says, actually, we have a great idea where we can freeze you and you can put all your money into a trust, and it'll accumulate interest until we are able to solve aging. As you do. And then he agrees to that, and he gets put into some sort of cryo tube where he eventually wakes up with a bunch of other old men, and they're all waking up at the same time, and they're these people, and he's like, quote, quasi-future gowns, and they're saying, actually, we have solved aging. They're like, they look rather young, and they're saying that, we're in our 70s, yada, yada, yada. But they tell them that it turns out that there was a major crisis in the past that ruined society, and that they had to start pretty much over, so all their money and wealth and everything is gone, but they are now more advanced than they were before, and but they're also, I don't know what the word is, he calls them soft, because they're vegetarians now, and they're trying, it looks like they're trying to live in some sort of utopia, but of course he thinks that, I can lead these people and fix them. But the people start talking about how, previous generations ruined the earth. But they don't know exactly how or why. So they said they're going to give them a meal, a banquet for the waking up. Of course, all the old men are like, these people are, so naive. We're going to take them over very easily, and we'll put things back to the way they were, until they're informed that this is not just a meal, but their last meal. And they all get stood up and basically shot down. And they are protesting, saying, just think of what we could do for you. We were the most talented, most intelligent minds of our generation. I deliberately saved all my wealth for this moment to finally make a difference. The woman says, it's an act of hope to have a child in this fallen world. Our ancestors trusted us, their children, to make a better world. And your execution is our first repayment of that trust. And she shoves the guy off a cliff, and he's screaming, this isn't fair, as he's falling to his death. End scene.
These people are socialists.
Go ahead.
These people are socialists.
Mm-hmm.
There's something kind of novelistic about this story, and yeah, it's again, it's a more complicated character because he's sort of kind of wants to do something good, but he's just doing it the wrong way, and he's just he's just got a bad attitude about it. And so there are bits and pieces to the character, and it's what is especially I guess fascinating. It seems to be a Gen Z, because she looks Gen Z. It's like a Gen Z comment on all the rest of us. Our execution is their first repayment of this new trust. I think that's how they think about the rest of us, and I can't say I blame them.
Yeah, there's another line that she says after they take them out from the meal and start lining them up. She says, now that you have tasted the very best we have to offer, it's time for you to see the world we were left and learn why you won't be seeing any more of it. We cannot know who is directly responsible for ruining the world, but as only you remain from history, you will stand in for those responsible. Indifference and greed will not be tolerated.
Yeah, I think we've been put on notice.
Yeah, so it's very, it's kind of boiling, eons of history.
But then this is the whole point of science fiction is This is what you're supposed to do with science fiction. You can make these incredible complex and profound points simply by setting it in a futuristic world.
Right.
And they pull it off with really quite a lot of success. The story, the point that they're trying to make, hey, it's out there. They're They're making strong, complicated points in their stories.
Right. I mean, it's kind of a paradox in a way where it's like, they're showing that a lot of the wealth and these great big things have been built by these, rich men, that may, has better society over, to some degree, push society forward, but left others behind. And like, what is the benefit of that? Like, if we never crawled out of the caves, we never would have found fire or medicine, all those things. There's like a balance between discovery and enhancement and moving things forward, but there's also a cost as well. And at some point, the balance tips and things fall apart.
That's the dynamic tension that all human beings live in: the desire to progress and against the desire to conserve what was, because that's the safer thing. And so we're always
at some point you progress, you push things so far that it's not sustainable, and it's
yeah. Then there's a reaction as kind of what we're experiencing right now in this country.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, it's interesting because
this ain't new. This what's happening in our country is not even remotely new. Ever since I turned off the news, I've been listening to lots and lots of podcasts, just because, hey, now that I'm really fully committed to being in the podcast business, I want to know what everyone is doing. The world is filled with wonderful podcasts, and I happen to love history, so I'm listening to lots and lots and lots and lots of history. And what I keep hearing is how what's happening right now to us in this country is so not new. It is so. This happens again and again and again and again and again.
Well, I think what's new is that the different sides are trying the same, or trying the other side's methods, and it's having an interesting consequence.
But the struggle,
yes,
between these two opposing forces is kind of eternal. And it really is, these two impulses. And who said, if we don't learn from history, we'll go on making the same mistakes. Hey, that's us.
We're doomed.
That's us. Yeah, we are doomed to repeat this. Oh God, we are. And we keep doing it.
When the balance goes off too far, eventually, you repeat history one too many times, things could go catastrophic. And that's kind of what this is showing.
Indeed.
Structurally, I think
I
think the structure of the comic is a little bit clunky in the first half, because it doesn't really do a very good job of showing us the transition of time. That would have been, even like a 5-year later thing or something like that for some of these panels would have been a little helpful. It's a little confusing to read.
I agree. I think this is a story where we could have come in a little bit further into it and then jump back in time to learn who this kid was.
Yeah. I mean, I love the first bit when he's a really young man. I really
I wouldn't lose it, but I'd start a little bit further into the story just so we get a sense of the context.
Well, because I see like 3 or 4 different time jumps, but they don't really clue us into that time has jumped, so it's a little jarring in the way it's presented.
Right, exactly, because we spend a lot of time in the future when,
that it would have been cool if they had the future was the main, was the through line, and then they had the past segments, and then it said 1,000 years before, 1,200 years before, something like that.
Yeah. Agree.
That would have been a little more graceful way to do it. But I think because the ending is so strong, I think you kind of look over some of that in the end. So well done.
This isn't fair. Yeah,
love that.
That will be our response.
Right, as if fair has ever had anything to do with it. All right. Well, that wraps up our review of Cruel Universe number 5. Alan, thank you for joining me. Where can people find you?
They can find me right now at the How Not to Make a Movie podcast, where we every single week, or at thedonorpodcast.com, where they can enjoy the absolutely true story of Hal, who was an anonymous sperm donor in the mid-1980s. Jump forward 25 years. He joins up with 23andMe, curious about his health genes. It never occurs to him the ramifications of sending in his DNA to a growing DNA database. Suddenly, he lost his donor anonymity, and 7 total strangers found Daddy, except 6 of them had no idea that their actual biological father was Hal, a sperm donor.
Sounds like an episode of Cruel Universe.
Hey.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Alan. I appreciate everyone for listening.
Jason.
I'd really appreciate it if all of our listeners would give us a rating review on iTunes, a rating on Spotify, a like and subscribe on YouTube, and follow us at Dads from the Crypt Talk on TikTok. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.